BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Well, get in on our $200,000 mega contest. Pick 5 games against the spread every single week for a chance at weekly prizes and a share of 200 grand. Oh, no big deal. And when the game's over, head on over to our online casino, get in a game of blackjack, poker, or one of our 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. And speaking of action, by the way, for this Rams-Packers game, you can make bets on who scores first, total points. Will there be a 2-point conversion? All of that and so much more. Check out BetOnline. The game starts here. All right. What's up, guys? Welcome to Bleav in Rams, part of the Bleav Network. Erin Coscarelli back with you. Be sure to subscribe, comment, rate, follow this podcast. You can also catch us on Bleav TV and follow us on all the socials. We have an exciting guest because week 5 is officially upon us. Ahman Green, former NFL running back. He played 12 seasons in the league, some time with the Packers. You also have your own Packers show. Ahman, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Erin. How you doing?
You know, it's good to dice it up a little bit before the show. Apparently, you were a Los Angelino for some time. It sounds like it's a touchy subject. I don't know how much we should get into that, but you did spend some time here in LA before you moved to Nebraska, no less, right?
Yeah. So I was born in Nebraska, and then we came out. So I was young then. When I came out there, I was like 4 years old or something, and was all over Los Angeles area, Glendale, Pasadena, in Inglewood, and then LA, like South Central LA, right next to Crenshaw High and between Dorsey and Crenshaw High. And like I mentioned before we recorded, I was had my life perfect, girlfriend, good friends, got my baseball season going, got my basketball, football season. And then mom and dad said, hey, it's too expensive out in California. We're going to move you back to the Midwest. And I was about 13 and a half, almost 14. And of course, at that age, it's like, no, it's over. So
it's over. 13, 14 to have to readjust. I mean, that's not easy. But how did it impact your football game, do you think?
It was a big deal. It was a good thing, right? I found out. So one of my brothers, he coached me in Little League when I moved back to Nebraska. So one more year of Little League. And I didn't know the difference until we had a tryout practice. And I'm literally running circles around kids. And I'm like, and I wasn't a obnoxious kid. I didn't say much. I was very humble. And so I said to my brother after one of the drills, I said, bro, is it just me or these kids are slow? And he's like, no, it's not you. It's you grew up in California. You grew up with other athletes that are fast. They hit hard. They're competitive. The kids out here not outside every day because it snows in the winter and you're outside every day. So he broke it down. And I'm like, oh, because I was like, man, this just seems like y'all stuck in mud around me. I'm doing things that they're like, oh my God, where'd you? They started calling me the California kid, not knowing I was born in Omaha. It was just a funny little story there. But yeah, I noticed the difference right away. So, but it's gonna be different for these Packers and these Rams coming up on Sunday.
Well, you've got the Midwest coming to LA. For the first time, the Packers are gonna see SoFi. The 2-2 Packers taking on the 1-3 Rams. It's an interesting game. It's certainly an interesting matchup, right? Both teams heading into this game with losses. Packers falling 31-29 to the Vikings. At home at Lambeau. Rams losing to the Bears 24-18. How about let's start with that Vikings game for you. What did you see? Let's break that down first before we get into the Rams, because week 4, you're starting to kind of see what these teams actually look like. Jordan coming off of that missed 2 games with a knee injury, I believe. What'd you see out of the Packers?
I just saw for Jordan. I'll start there. I saw rustiness. You could tell. You could just see it. He just timing wise, but the throws were there. Everything else is going to come. He was just kind of getting used to having the brace on from the injury, because that's going to be a staple for at least 2 more weeks. Because I had an MCL myself, and so once you do it, you got to put the brace on just for protection, just for insurance sake. And so with that, getting adjusted to that, but then also getting back on timing with his offensive line, with his receivers downfield. You saw that there and not there, but throughout the game, as the game got close to the end, then you saw what eventually he's going to look like in a couple of weeks. He started hitting passes. Receivers are competing. Jaden Reed, Octavian Wicks, those guys are out there young and are not playing young. They're playing like they've been in the years, 5-6 years already. Romeo's close to that. He's also chipping in. And then the run, I said the only biggest thing I saw was like a little bit of a subtle surprise was how well Minnesota's Vikings slowed down the run game for the Packers, because the last couple of weeks with Malik Willis running and then Josh Jacobs and Emmanuel Wilson having a good job to get the ball upfield, just saw that was a little bit different from the previous games. And it was probably because the ball was chucked up 50 plus times this year this game, in this last game. So it's just interesting seeing that part. But like I mentioned this on our podcast, like the Minnesota Vikings, Detroit Lions, and the Bears, this division is going to be what it used to be, the old black and blue division, where these teams are going to beat each other up. So we saw that. And that's what I saw in that game last week with the Vikings going to Lambeau to get the win.
Yeah. Yeah, the Vikings, an interesting team at the moment. But, with Jordan Love, 54 pass attempts, I mean, 3 for 389 yards, 4 touchdowns, but he also had 3 INTs. 54 passing attempts. Coach LaFleur said that, he gave him those reps to sort of, like you had mentioned, kind of wear off the rust that maybe he was feeling for not playing in the previous 2 games. How have you seen Jordan Love's game develop?
Since last year, it's been developing just as I thought it would, because he had 4 years to watch, or 3 years to watch Aaron Rodgers, and to sit on the shelf, being the first rounder. Obviously, there was a lot of conversation, good and bad, about that. But it's a good thing. When you are a quarterback, you're the one position on a football field at the pro level that has to literally learn not just your position, but the other 10 positions, and then whatever the defense is doing on the other side of the ball. And to know that stuff, what I mean is pre-snap reads from what defensive backs or linebackers, or how, if you can even look down at the 3 technique or the 9 technique and see where they're aligned, because then you know how to make an audible, you know how to either tell your receiver, hey, you need to move your split in a little bit, and all that. So all that to try to pick up in year 1, he didn't have to worry about that. He had Erin as his teammate, and he was the starter then. So he had those years to basically marinate, learn all the stuff that he needs to be a top quarterback. So when he got to be the starting guy last year, after the free agency trade or free agency contract with Erin going to the Jets, I was like, he's going to have a good year, but it's going to be a little bit bumpy. But he has enough experience and what he's seen through the previous years with Erin in front of him to come out and have a season like he did. And then along with you throw in the defense, the way they played, and having Aaron Jones come back from that injury last year to kind of push them into the playoffs. That was all the confidence building that they needed, or he needed, to get ready for becoming a quarterback for the Packer organization, an NFL quarterback, but now set him up for year 2. And the only unfortunate thing is the injury, but the injury is not going to slow him down much. He's going to have this next game. This is going to be a game where we'll see how far he's come from last week's game to this week's game.
Yeah, it's interesting. You said confidence building, right? How important is that as a quarterback in the NFL? Confidence. I mean, it can waver, and we've seen it. We've seen it with different guys, and to back up a guy like Aaron Rodgers, much like Aaron Rodgers did for Brett Favre. Hopes are high. Expectations are certainly high. He's had a lot of time to watch what Aaron does. How is his game different? Do you like his game better than Rodgers before? Is there a skill set that you think he lends itself to?
Yeah, what I like about what he's taken from Aaron's game, and then I'll say part of his game that came from the college level, is I've paid attention to kind of his footwork, because Aaron, had a good base on him. When I say the base, from the feet up. And when they're throwing balls, he always make sure he set his feet, his body was in the right position to throw the ball. And rarely did you get him out of that position unless you had pressure. He had pressure on him, coming in from the defense. So, and then one thing he adapted very well is Aaron's kind of falling backward, kind of sling throw. You see Pat Mahomes do it every now and then, and Jordan has a good one. And it's almost it is a misnomer. It's a thing that most quarterback coaches be like, hey, I don't want you to throw that ball like that because your feet are not quite set. But if you have the ability, which you have the arm talent to do it, he could get away with it. And that's what Jordan Love is developing with that kind of sidearm throw from a lot of quarterbacks that we see that happen in the NFL today. So I'm glad he has that, because then a defense will think they have him, and then not quite, where he's just falling back. He's able to get the ball just enough over the defender's hand into his receiver's arms to get the ball downfield for a big play or a touchdown.
Yeah, certainly saw his capability even against the Vikings in that loss. I mean, he can sling it clearly. Obviously, the Packers are very comfortable with that.
Yep.
What would you say your team's strength is at this point? Have we seen enough tape to know what your team is good at and what your team really needs to work on?
I'll say strengths. I say offensively, right now, the wide receiver core is real strong. Got a whole bunch of young guys, Tucker to Romeo to Bo to Datavian to Jaden. Those guys are playing like 5th, 6th year veterans. And so they're confident. They're not overconfident. And they're confident just enough. And they're out there putting in the work to get better. They're trying to, with them being so young, they're continuously every game having to prove themselves to the next defense that shows up. So right now they got to go prove themselves to the Rams defense to have that respect. I mean, they're going to have some respect when the game kicks off, but with veteran cornerbacks, sometimes they look at a young receiver and be like, okay, this receiver only his skill level is this. He knows this and that's it. So, but what they don't add into that equation, even though their years are low, is their drive, their excitement. They want to get better. They're going to push themselves to get hard. They're going to push hard against them being young players. And I'll say for a weakness, I don't know. I'll say right now, just the gelling together, because it's still early in the season. With Jordan coming back, that's just going to be the only weak spot for probably another quarter. That's it, because he had last game to get all the rust knocked off, throwing the 3 interceptions. That was it. I say now he got one more quarter, and then I think that's when he'll be really in stride with the offensive line, with the receivers, with the run game, with LaFleur calling plays, because he'll know what plays that his quarterback wants to run, even if it's a run play, because then you got to get in a rhythm and make sure you keep the defense honest, because if you're just running pass, they'll know how to sit in that zone, and then eventually start getting some picks out there. So you want to keep it a nice little mixture of run to pass, along with, like you said, you got Josh Jacobs coming in free agency, and the young buck Emmanuel Wilson as well, running the ball well. You have that balance with that. You keep that defense really on their toes.
Yeah, well, so that was going to be one of my next questions. If you were Matt LaFleur right now, what's the strategy you would have against Rams defense that hasn't done entirely well? They have a decently high pressure rate. I think highest actually in the league, but they're allowing a lot of rushing yards, a lot of rushing attempts, and it's not looking great. There are some bright spots, obviously, as you know. Aaron Donald retired, big void to fill. Yes. You're Matt LaFleur. How do you attack this Rams team?
I think it's that last part right there, Aaron Donald, and I think a lot of teams have been doing that to their defense. Is now somewhere they never went before for the last 8 to 10 years because of 99 being in the middle. They're like, we're not going to go in the middle, or wherever they lined up 99, we're just going to go opposite of him. But now 99 is not even a factor. So they got to test. They're testing this young defensive line for the Rams, the linebackers as well, because a lot of the linebackers, because of Aaron, didn't get touched because he was pushing and he was getting triple team most of the time, double team a lot of the time as well. So now everybody kind of has to make up for that deficit. Like, okay, Aaron Donald, he occupied 3 guys at a time. So now we got to step our game to a point up. It was like, okay, now I got to fill that gap. I got to make sure I hit it and make proper tackles, keep the errors and missteps, because on defense, if you take one step the wrong way when a play is going the other direction, you're definitely beat. 80% of the time. So you got to be aware of that. And so that's where these players, even the veterans on the Rams defense, have to start thinking, progressively. All right, Aaron's gone. This is game 4 now. So it's a twilight in the back of our mind. We, as a team, as a unit, we got to do these things. We got to proper tackle. We got to get gang tackle to the ball and try to create issues by D-line penetrating into the offense backfield to make sure that offense can get going, get rolling in any sort of words.
Yeah. I mean, are you surprised to know that Matt LaFleur has never lost to Sean McVay?
Yeah, I am surprised. I did not know that, really. Yeah, and it's interesting. Usually, and he's from his tree as well. Coaching, as we say, coaching tree and legacies or what have you. Yeah. He's Matt LaFleur came from under Matt McVay. So did not know that.
The Packers have won 4 straight games, and that including the playoffs. And yeah, exactly. Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur. I mean, they're kind of like these like-minded brains, chess masters, much like the Kyle Shanahan dynamic. What do you take? What's your take on Matt LaFleur as a head coach? How have you seen his game evolved? How has he developed as a coach?
I Bleav he's developed very well. I say he needs to probably not be as high strung. He seems like he's totally stressed out. He seems as if he's annoyed.
Like at the podium?
Yes, that's what I was just about to say. At the press conference, he just seems annoyed. He's like, why are they asking me these dumb questions? In his head, that's what he's saying. I could see his facial expression and be like, bro, why are you asking me that dumb question? Like, why? But I say, and a lot of coaches don't like to talk, right? Let's just be real. A lot of head coaches, a lot of assistants, they want to get on the mic and get off the mic. They want to get back in their home. They want to be in the locker room. They want to be in film, breaking down film. So don't blame them for that, because I was a player. I had to deal with it too. I definitely understand that. But I say in his growth of one, because head coaches, obviously there's a lot of stuff on their plate, dealing with player management, dealing with the business management and the off season, a free agency and all that stuff. And we don't know how much he does or does do or does not do with the GM. I can't remember. The name is slipping my mind real quick. What's that?
Oh, go ahead.
No, the GM. Yeah, I was just trying to get his name. I just slipped my mind for a minute. But as he's growing, he's learning how to deal with all that stuff, right? I mean, for this start of the season, you play great game, you lose it, but then you lose your starting quarterback. And now we got a backup that we got to get ready. He's only been here 3 weeks in terms of Malik Willis. And we got another good team coming through. We got to go play them, or they got to play us. And he got him ready. Him and other coaches on that staff got Malik Willis ready to one. So that's when they beefed up the run game, where Josh Jacobs had over 140 plus yards rushing, and so did Marshawn Lloyd before he got hurt. And Emmanuel, so got the run game going, and then slowly introduced Malik to the offense, made it real simple for him, where you didn't have to worry about him making the big throws downfield. And you saw how that game went. I Bleav against the Tennessee Titans, and then the next week was kind of flipped, where Malik got comfortable in that 1 week's time and running the offense. And now he had a little bit over 200 yards passing, had 70 plus yards rushing on the ground with his legs. And then the run game was still effective. So having to deal with that as a coaching staff, not a young coaching staff, they've been here since 2019, but obviously new roster year over year, to handle it the way they handled it in the first month of the football season, the NFL season, because in September, the worst things that happen is to have your quarterback down, or have your running back go down, or a defensive lineman that's a starter, or offensive tackle guard that's a starter. And now you all of a sudden got to rebuild area. And so they managed that real good. They did a good job with that. That's one thing I've definitely been mentioning since week 1, is how they handled that to help Malik get in there, be successful, won both his games. And now they're sitting in a good spot in the NFC North where they can bow out, but still so he's continuing to do this throughout the year.
Yeah. I mean, I think the case for these coaches like a LaFleur or McVay, they just have to be so good at problem solving. I mean, like you said, he shows up to the podium and he looks like he is stressed. There's no shortage of issues when it comes to being a head coach in the NFL and trying to plug and play and deal with injuries and not having Love for 2 games. Now Watson's out. I mean, it's the same thing that we've got going on in Los Angeles right now. And I'm so curious.
Yes,
I want to
you
ask
are.
you this, right? So we're out Puka, right?
Yep.
We're out Cooper Kupp, our 2-star wide receivers, and it's showing. It's actually showing, even though there's a lot of depth at the wide receiver position. A lot of emphasis has been on the run game. Kyren Williams has done great. I think he scored a touchdown in each of the last 7 games, right? So that's great news. You're the running back in LA. How are you feeling right now, knowing that you're sort of the core of the heartbeat of what is getting this team W's, even if you've got a banged up offensive line. We've got, I think 3 starters on IR. How are you, what is going through Kyren Williams' mind right now, and what can he do?
I never met the young man, but the way he runs the ball and being a running back, I know right now, I said, really I'm just going to do my job. As long I'm healthy. So get ready day by day, get my sleep, get my rehab, get in the playbook, study the film, get in the weight room, get ready physically, because everything else I can't control. Only thing I can control is my actions and my gameplay. So make sure I'm bringing the same gameplay every year, the same tempo, the same excitement to the backfield, because we know we got deficits in the O-line, deficits in the wide receiver core. So that means I got to play the way I usually play if all those guys were here, and maybe take it up a notch, since we got to make up for the deficit of good players not being on the field. So that's the mindset you got to have, because if you start thinking like, oh man, we don't have him, we don't have that, or we don't have this play caller here, when you start worrying about that, that's worry, and worry just gives you gray hair. Okay, it gives you gray hair, and then it's a way. It really, to me, in my opinion, is a waste of time. So don't worry about that. Be set on take it one game at a time, one day at a time, because from his production, he had 94 yards last game against the Bears. So that right there, and like you said, 7 touchdowns in the last 7 games, or 1 touchdown in the last 7 games, shows that he is a guy that definitely on that roster and meshes well with what McVay is coaching and play calling wise, and what the quarterback with Matt Stafford likes to run as well.
Before I let you go, of course, I'm going to get you your, who's the X factor and who you think might win. Before that, though, I'm going to have you put on your Sean McVay cap, and I know this is going to make you really uncomfortable, but what can the Rams do to get a win against this Packers team? What do you think that, the skill set lends itself to the Rams? And then also, you were talking about earlier some of the weaknesses the Packers have right now.
Yeah, I'll say one or two things that the Rams can do for themselves to win this game against the Packers is, one, limit their turnovers, because right now the Packers back end, so Keyshawn Nixon, Xavier McKinney. I think Xavier McKinney has had an interception in every game this season. So don't allow them to get their hands on the ball and be prevalent in the pass game, because even though Matt is Matt, he's a good quarterback. He's going to, when he's in rhythm, he's in rhythm. So try to get Matt to the in rhythm part without making the mistakes that Stafford has had in the past. We had those games where he's throwing the ball where he shouldn't. That's great for defenses, but not great for the Rams offense. And I say for the Packers too, not let their offense, so it's like vice versa, not let the Rams offense get in rhythm, because right now they do have a run game with Williams, and Matt Stafford is back there and he's healthy. Regardless of who's playing, he's going to keep playing. Like next man up mentality for him at wide receiver, and for who's blocking him. If with the lineman being gone, all he's saying in my head and in his head is, you know what, I got a lot less time to throw the ball, so let me get the ball out quick. And I'm pretty sure McVay knows that as well. So making sure they're having 3-step drop, or less to get the ball out, and screen play, stuff like that, to make it a little bit more easier. Then as the game goes, you could then get in the flow of play calling and know when the best opportunities to call certain plays for that. So it's kind of a mirrored matchup of what both teams have to do, because you got Jordan Love coming back from the knee, still a little rusty, but this is going to be his game where he can knock all that rust off, but also have that run game balance, and also with Matt too, to keep him, in the game. making sure you have pass plays that he can get the ball out fast to his receivers, and now keep the run game going. When you have a running back pushing over 50, 60 yards a game and scoring touchdowns too, that keeps the defense honest out there as well.
Yeah. Stafford tied for the most sacked quarterback at the moment. And getting to Stafford is, for teams right now is not that hard. So hopefully they can employ that run first strategy.
They could keep Rashard Gary and Van Ness out of the backfield and Preston Smith, because that's where they're going to try to meet up for sure. Since they know that they have tackles and guards that should be in there that are not in there right now.
I mean, it'll be really, really, really interesting. After this game, the Rams have a much needed bye. Hopefully some guys can come back. In the meantime, Ahman Green, I need to ask you, who wins this game Sunday? Who you got?
Oh, man, I'm going to have to go with my Packers. And I'm going to go with a tight one, though. It's going to be 31-24. So just a touchdown separation.
Ooh, okay. I love it. We'll see. We'll see how many touchdowns Jordan throws for. And let's hope, let's hope we see a good game at the very least. No injuries.
100%.
Ahman Green, you're the best. You do a show called Bleav in Packers, right?
Yep. So I do Bleav in Packers. And obviously this is on the Bleav network, and I have a few other shows too. Ahman Green's Gamers Lounge. I do that on YouTube and Twitch. That's every Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. Then I do another Packer podcast, Green and Go G Lounge, with my old teammates Dorsey Levens and Gilbert Brown, and that is at 10:30 a.m. on Tuesday mornings on my Twitch channel as well, on Ahman Green TV on Twitch. So busy. Yes.
Busy, but you know what? You have great energy. I love how you see the game. Thank you for teaching us and taking us into that Packers perspective. Good luck to you guys on Sunday. Hope not too much luck.
Your Rams, Erin, as well.
And we'll talk to you soon, okay? Ahman Green, thank you again for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.